As a quick warning, this story might get into darker subjects, like kidnapping, because it has to do with Dr. Gero, so if kidnapping is something that bothers you, it might be better to skip this story. Anyway, also as a quick note, the ones I'm including as Saiyans in this story are Raditz, Nappa, and Vegeta. We won't see Goku turn into an android, so I'm making this what if as a different version of the future timeline. If there's enough interest in it, I might try to do a version of this that happens in the present timeline. Anyway, for this timeline to work, there are 3 changes that would need to be made for this to work. For the first change, we must go back to age 761. As usual, Goku and Piccolo were fighting against Raditz together currently. Goku was still holding back, while Piccolo was charging the special beam cannon. He eventually finishes charging it and launches the blast at both Goku and Raditz. The change comes in when Raditz gets free from Goku's grip just before the beam hits him. Though, it's still too late, as he couldn't move that far away from Goku in the blast. So, the blast still rips through his chest, but just barely misses his heart in this timeline. He still isn't in a good state, though, as he'd still bleed out sooner or later. Regardless, the blast still rips through Goku as well, killing him as per usual. The heroes would have still been around when Raditz gave the warning and Goku died, but would have left after he did, leaving Raditz to bleed out. The major change for this part is that Dr. Gero, who had been observing the fight, gets an idea. He decides that someone as strong as this Raditz person could be useful for his android project. So, after the heroes left, he takes a ship over and gets Raditz's body. With how injured he was, Raditz couldn't physically put up a fight, so Dr. Gero would take him back to the lab. Normally, he would like to test on a subject like this, but he doesn't have the time since Raditz wouldn't survive through these tests. So, he instead starts the process of turning Raditz into an android right away. We don't know how long it takes Gero to turn someone into an android, but by the time Nappa and Vegeta arrive on Earth, he would have been done with turning Raditz into an android. He likely would have made Raditz an infinite energy android like he did with number 17 and number 18. Also, something to point out is that I think Gero would have already had number 17 and number 18 made, along with plans for androids number 19 and 20. Regardless, with the tests he did on the now android Raditz, he would have found out that he was extremely strong in comparison to a regular human base. So, when the other 2 Saiyans arrive, he would think they could be useful for his revenge plan as well. This is where the second major change must take place so Nappa can be turned into an android. When Vegeta throws Nappa into the air and blasts him, instead of him dying, he just barely manages to survive this attack. Though, to the heroes of Vegeta, he was seemingly killed, so they don't bother paying attention as his body falls to the ground. After the fight with Vegeta ends as usual, the heroes still leave to go to the hospital. This is when Dr. Gero arrives at the battlefield, with him taking the body of Nappa. Again, this is a case where he can't perform tests on Nappa since he is close to death. So, he turns Nappa into an android as soon as possible as well. Also, something to mention that during this time skip between age 761 and age 766, Gero still creates Android 19 and has himself turned into Android 20. Then, as for what's going on with the heroes during this time, Vegeta would still have been at Capsule Corp. Vegeta still develops a relationship with Bulma, thus causing Trunks to be born at age 766 as per usual, though he would still go off to train in space to achieve Super Saiyan at some point. When he comes back from achieving it, he would train in the wastelands on Earth instead. Dr. Gero would have been keeping an eye on Vegeta since he wanted to turn him into an Android 2 ever since he's seen him arrive on Earth all those years ago. When Vegeta is separated like this, he sees it as the perfect chance it goes to the wastelands too. Vegeta wouldn't have a good grip on Super Saiyan yet, so he would still have the stamina drain issue. During Vegeta's training as a Super Saiyan, Dr. Gero would eventually end up ambushing him after his stamina started to drop. Since Gero was already turned into an android, he uses the energy absorbers in his hands to absorb the rest of his energy. This basically leaves Vegeta powerless and unconscious, so Dr. Gero takes him back to his lab. He's chained down when he is in the lab, but even then, he doesn't really have the strength to fight back. However, since this is the first Saiyan he has that wasn't near death, he can perform the test he wanted on the Saiyan. Regardless, after he finishes the test he wanted to do, he would still turn Vegeta into an android as well. Dr. Gero would have also tried programming them to lose their memories, so that they wouldn't completely remember everything that happened to them. Though, they would still have their personalities to some extent, like how number 17 and number 18 still had their rebellious nature. However, it wouldn't be rebellious, so something that would work to Gero's advantage is that all 3 Saiyans want to kill Goku. Anyway, Dr. Gero also wouldn't call them by their names of course. Instead, he would give them a number designation as well. Raditz would become Android 22, Nappa would become Android 23, and Vegeta would become Android 24. The reason Raditz is Android 22 instead of Android 21 is because Gero probably already had the plans drawn up to make an android based on his wife, Vomi. Even if she isn't activated alongside the others right away, she still is Android 21. Also, with this happening, Bulma would have found it weird that Vegeta completely disappeared after having gone to train in the wastelands. Sure, he normally went away like this, but he always comes back for food and a place to sleep. She would likely try to investigate the wastelands he went to, but unfortunately, she couldn't find any sign of what could have happened to him. She sees signs that he was training there, since there was some rubble left behind, but nothing to say where he went. She just assumes he went off somewhere else to train, so he returns home, since she must take care of Trunks still. So, she returns to Capsule Corp, and she just resigns to waiting for Vegeta to eventually return. Since this is a time of peace, and since it is the future timeline, they wouldn't be training in preparation for the androids. Instead, the other heroes would have eventually heard about Vegeta's disappearance, which is just weird to them, since he didn't seem like the one to just do that, even though he wasn't exactly good. It starts to worry them that Vegeta is plotting something evil instead, so they might train a little just in case Vegeta does decide to try something. They still weren't completely trusting of him after everything he did on Earth and then on Namek, since that wasn't that long ago. Though, Goku was still willing to give Vegeta a chance to turn over a new leaf. So, he has some hope in his mind that Vegeta didn't disappear to betray them somehow, but he can't be completely sure. Regardless, the heroes might have briefly tried to search for Vegeta where he was last known to have been. Unlike Bulma, with them having been able to sense Ki, they might have managed to find where Vegeta was, though, unbeknownst to them, since he was turned into an android, they wouldn't be able to sense his Ki anymore. It also means that when Goku tried to find him with the instant transmission, it didn't work. So, unfortunately for the heroes, they don't manage to find Vegeta either. They don't get to focus on the search for long, though, since towards the end of the year, Goku gets sick with an unknown disease, which we know to be the heart virus. Bulma and the others return their attention toward trying to help Goku. It is to no avail, though, as he passes away from the heart virus. 6 months later, when the androids begin their attack on the Menbo Island, there would be 5 androids there instead of the usual 2. They would begin wreaking havoc on the island by killing people and damaging the city. This causes the heroes to hear about the attack in a news broadcast on the television. Once the heroes arrived, Piccolo tried taking them on first, but he is killed by Android 18. Of course, this causes Kami to die as well, so the Dragon Balls become inert. Yamcha is the next to be killed as Android 17 kills him. Then Tien falls at their hands, but he is killed by Android 22. Krillin is the next to die, as Android 24 kills him. Next is Shotsu, as he is killed by Android 23. Lastly, Yajirobe is killed in this timeline, as he is attacked by androids 22, 23, and 24 at the same time. So, after the androids leave, it's too late for Korin to save Yajirobe. I think this timeline will be even darker than the future timeline we know. The Saiyans are ruthless as well, and with there being 5 androids instead of 2, it's highly possible they would kill future Gohan way earlier in the timeline. The population of the Earth will likely be wiped out way sooner as well. For example, it took 13 years for androids 17 and 18 to wipe out 2/3 of the planet. With 5 androids, it could go a lot faster, as with the calculation I did, it would take about 5 years and 2 months to wipe out 2/3 of the planet. If things progress at the same rate as in the original future timeline, future Gohan died the same year 2/3 of the Earth's population was wiped out. So, in this timeline, it's possible future Gohan could die at age 772. Future Trunks would roughly be 6 at this time, so it's highly unlikely he was trained that much, if any. At the rate the androids were killing people in this timeline, it would roughly take 7 years and 10 months to wipe out the entire Earth's population. Future Trunks would roughly be 8 at this time, though he would not stand a chance against the androids, so he would be killed. It's hard to tell what the androids could do from here on out. They could try to find things on the Earth to entertain themselves, but with the destructive nature of the Saiyans, they might destroy the Earth and go to the other planets instead. So, it isn't a good ending for the heroes in the universe itself.